Welcome back to Success and Equity on BCTV. Right now we're talking to one of my favorite people on campus, Dean Beckworth. You have been involved with the veterans for a long time because you are one yourself. And before the break, we were talking about the transition that you came to when you came back to the United States. And what a lot of people on campus might not know, if they haven't heard your story, is that you were in some hairy parts of the world, some uncomfortable parts of the world, right?
Well, I was in the first Gulf War and I was in Somalia. I didn't see real combat like these guys do. The first Gulf War, I was with a helicopter support squadron. A few missiles came in once in a while, just really not that big of a deal.
Yeah, but most people, like, I find that all veterans do this. They will downplay and be like, well, I don't want to, look, everybody knows that a small percentage of our combat troops are like special forces guys who are raiding the Bin Laden compound. But, dude, just being in a country where there's a war, most people never experience that. I'm almost 40. I've never been on a continent. I've never been on a continent that was having an armed conflict.
One of the phrases that you kind of hear, I don't know if it's with all veterans, but certainly with the OIF, OEF, is we are the 1%. We're the real 1%. And that, I think that's kind of part of what creates that camaraderie. And even after coming home from the first Gulf War, I was only 19, just like a cliche, just like the Vietnam guys, 19. People just thought like I was gone, now he's back. Just nothing happened. There was just he was gone, now he's back like he was on a vacation or he was at college.
But you just were. Like, you went from being the boy Paul, right, from up north, to you became a world traveled guy who had seen some of the far reaches of the human experience, right?
I did, and they couldn't. It was hard to share that, and quite frankly, nobody asked. Nobody asked. I didn't volunteer any information, but it kind of went. By the time my leave was over, I was ready to leave. I was ready to go back to my base. And one of my friends, when I'd come home, he wanted to do what we had done in high school. Let's go to the mall and look for girls. Well, I kind of don't want to. I'd rather just maybe hang out with my family. I really don't want to do that kind of stuff right now. And that was it. That's part of that difficulty of transition that others don't get. And one of the great things is we learned a lot of lessons from Vietnam. When we came home in '91, we got parades.
Boy, yeah, absolutely. I remember
the Vietnam guys did not.
I remember buying a air superiority T-shirt. Yeah, I remember air superiority when the first Gulf War was like this, this like an incredible showing of U.S. military might. Like, school kids were talking about the Patriot missile system, right? That was there was like a real upswell in pride for sure.
Right, and that's thankfully again learning those lessons from Vietnam about how these guys that were the same age as I was and just 20 years earlier,
embroiled in a deadly, complicated, horrible situation
that absolutely divided the country.
Yeah.
And so that was really good to see that. And then going to Somalia later on, just what a sad situation that really was.
Yeah, talk about that. You go from being a guy from the Central Valley, right?
Yeah.
Just like the rest of us, California is a huge state, so a lot of us don't get out of it much. And you probably saw some poverty. Obviously, we're not immune to it. But then you go to Somalia.
It was we were there for a reason. You just they needed to eat. The people weren't getting any food. It was really sad to see they'd been embroiled in their own civil wars. Just this they'd come out of this colonial time. The British had been in there. The Italians had been in there. Just really exploiting the area like European colonialism did. And so when we went in, it was for this humanitarian reason, and then later on it became more political. But the poverty's not even the right word. It's not.
It's like edge of survival.
Absolutely, it is absolutely survival. I need to eat. I'm fine without having shoes. I just need food and clean water.
And clean, right? You know, I've always made the comments, you know, because I've worked in the arts and media for most of my adult life, and you have to become comfortable with thinking you're going to be on the edge, right? And then you say to yourself that even our citizens who face the biggest social hurdles, the homeless, many of them are drunk or overweight. And you saw, and that to us is like, oh, what a sad, you know, situation this person's in, and it is, no doubt. But you saw people who wanted the basic elements for life.
Right. You know, you do. You have that survival mentality. Nothing else matters. You don't care what's going on in another part of the country. You don't care what's going on down the street. You're just trying to deal with this day-to-day stuff. So when we went in there, that was pretty much part of the mission, was to do that. Now, my units, we didn't stay very long. Later on, the Army came in, and then you have the whole Black Hawk Down situation. I was long gone by the time
But they say
that happened.
that house-to-house fighting was like extremely intense in Somalia.
Well, for them it was. For the most part, we didn't have that. There was a lot of door-to-door searches, but not really like what these guys experienced there in Mogadishu on that particular day. But when you're 21, 22, you go in, you do what you're told. Going back to the whole idea of structure, if you don't like doing all that stuff, then maybe you're probably not in the right line of work. Maybe if you want to create policy, you need to become a politician in order to do that. That's my view.
Yeah, absolutely. But you came back home, and folks didn't ask you if you needed to talk. And obviously, there's a problem in this country, very unfortunately, with soldiers coming back and having like the worst kind of reacclimatization problems, right?
Right. With the OIF conflict, men and women, this has gone on for so long.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that have gone on multiple tours, sometimes 6-month tours, sometimes men and women they're gone for 16 months. They get to come home on leave. That's a stretch. That's like World War II time. That is a huge amount of time to be gone, and then you come back to the world of strip malls. You come back to the world of MTV. You come back to
not stressing out when you drive under overpass,
or where you sit in class.
Right.
You come out from this really structured, these are my brothers, these are my sisters, to college where you get to decide what you want to do instead of somebody saying you will take these classes. And the transition is so important. This is why the Veterans Club's important. The Veterans Lounge is important. You know, it's everybody helping everybody else out to get a feel for what it is that they want to do. One of the reasons a lot of times when you join the military is you're tired of school. But now, 7 years later, you realize I better get to school, and now you're back and you're trying to find your way. College is a maze for anybody. It doesn't matter what your background. It's a maze but for the veteran who's had a very structured life, it can be even more so. And Lord forbid you don't get your GI Bill check on time, then it just goes to hell in a handbasket sometimes.
But the federal government takes pretty good of student veterans with the GI Bill, right?
It really does. This started with one of our greatest presidents, Franklin Roosevelt, in 1944. Basically the Servicemen's Readjustment Act. Money for school, and in particular the VA home loan. It was very successful. You had millions of veterans who got to go to school in the 40s and 50s that would have never, ever been able to go to college in pre-World War II times. During the Depression, forget about it. Not going to happen. But because of this, you had a very well-educated, disciplined group of people leading this country from the 50s into the 60s. Remember, JFK, he's really that first young World War II guy to become president.
Right.
After
you're
that.
Absolutely correct.
Very formative experiences those were for him. A lot of people, they just think about the glamour of Camelot and so on and so forth, the assassination, but this guy was absolutely a hero in World War II, and that was where a lot of his back problems came from later on.
Right, right. And to sidebar into this, because it is important, he did learn some incredible lessons, and he was, I mean, the story goes is that he was in PT 109. He was
PT 109.
He was in PT 109, a patrol boat. I believe they're wooden, right? Or is it a wooden boat?
I don't know.
Okay. But the story goes that they get blown up, or the boat suffers a catastrophic injury of some kind. Well, Jack, President Kennedy, then Lieutenant Kennedy, I think,
right,
dives overboard. He's got somebody's life vest strap in his teeth, and he's pulling somebody, and he's like one-arming it back to shore. And I think they had to set up shop and hide out until they got rescued, if memory serves. But he was he was in real combat situations.
That's about, and actually, one of his brothers was killed during the war. They were grooming him to be president.
Right.
Right. He got blown out of the sky on a mission against the Germans.
And let's school some folks for a minute, because sometimes people get enlisted in the military, maybe during the Korean War, like Elvis, as a morale move, with no intention of ever putting Elvis Aaron Presley in a position of danger or a forward operating position. But Ted Williams, who was one of the best baseball players in the game, he goes and he's a combat pilot. Like, he flew combat missions. World War II was incredible. The scope, how far it reached into everybody's lives.
Everybody served. There were no draft deferments. Ted Williams, a Marine pilot, also the last Major League Baseball player to hit over 400.
Yep, that's correct.
Also in Korea, a lot of people don't know that these were prime years for a lot of these young men and women as well. And again, very formative. And again, this was the job. This is what you do. You would have been embarrassed if you didn't serve. Frank Sinatra didn't serve. Man, he got a lot of flack for that.
Yeah, right.
He really did. Elvis wasn't in the Korean War. That was later on, but he got sent to Germany with a tank outfit.
Did he really?
I believe.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
And then after he got back, he started making silly movies. But even all of these experiences were very helpful for them, and these are brutal experiences. We love to see the videos of people coming home and their families hug them. Those are great. These are bitter tears. This is the things that they've gone through are really, really hard, and those videoed welcome homes are very, very hard earned. They really, really are. We see this very small compressed thing. We don't realize they've been gone for 13 or 14 months. The spouses that are left behind, the kids that are left behind, absolutely are paying a price themselves.
Well, and I can't imagine the emotional shock. I have young children. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 2-year-old. If I left for 16 months, when I came home, their faces would look demonstrably different. They would be different people. And only so much can be overcome by phone and Skype. You're hoping you catch somebody during a good moment.
Yeah, that's so when they get home, when we get them at BC, and we also serve certainly the Veterans Club, we welcome the dependents as well. There's benefits for them as well.
And real quick, before we talk about those benefits, and also you and I are going to run through what a veteran needs to do when he comes to BC. Because I know some people, even in the best of circumstances, it can be overwhelming. A lot of steps to matriculation. We're going to explain some of those. We're going to tell you how to get the help that you need. If you're a veteran in Bakersfield, there is a lot of resources here, and I've been told it's a good town to be a veteran in. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. We've got more vital information about the veteran experience here in Kern County on Success and Equity on BCTV.